stops, everything stops, nothing left in the fountain. Nobody wants paper money, son, so you just will stop counting. Can you break the horse? Can you light the fire? What's that? I beg your pardon. You best start thinking where your food comes from, and I hope you tend a good garden. Getting down on the mountain, getting down on the mountain. Don't wanna be around when the shit goes down. I'll be getting down on the mountain. If the truck don't run, the bread don't come. Have a hard time finding petrol. Water ain't running in the city no more. Do you hold any precious metal? Can you get the fish?
Oh, I need to figure out a way to fade that out. Still learning this technology, folks, but welcome back. Hope you're having a great week. Hope you had a good weekend. Recorded on Saturday with Tyler Flake. That was fun watching it was not live. I mean, we watched it, but the roadie had already happened. But anyhow, it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed that. This episode's gonna be a little more of a downer, but I'm gonna try to make you laugh here and there. I've been following the news quite a little bit, and not just here. There's a lot of shit going on here that concerns me a lot, you know, with pretty good reason, I think. But I do think there's a lot of stuff going on throughout the world that is alarming, to say the least. And I think we're headed to war. I'm not 100% convinced, but I'm pretty sure. You know, I don't wish it at all. I think it's a bad plan, but it seems to be where we're headed. And you know, I guess we could start off with the good news. Like, we'll start with some good news, just so we just ease into this situation. Brittany Griner is back, baby. She is back, and we only had to give up the Merchant of Death for her, the Lord of War himself. I don't know if you guys remember that movie, Lord of War, with Nicolas Cage. Best actor in my generation, hands down. With just classics after classic after classic. Anyway, the guy that he played in that movie that sold all the former, you know, all the weapons to all these different war zones across the world, and most of the time he was selling weapons to people on both sides, and he was selling weapons for the U.S. government because they couldn't be seen in there. Then he was probably selling with the Russians because they couldn't be seen in the, you know, having a hand in this conflict or another. And meanwhile, this dude was just raking in cash, doing a very dangerous job, you know, no doubt, but raking in cash. And, well, Russia's got him back now, and we got Brittany Griner, and I think we came out ahead because I'll tell you why. This is for you, Dan Given. One of and Dan and Pavel, I'll get one for you here later on. I'm sure one will come up, but they're at the big swinging Richard level on Patreon, patreon.com/burninDaylight, and they get a sponsored dick joke of the week. So I think we came out ahead on this Brittany Griner trade. So if you remember back here a couple months ago, whenever we had that Russian propaganda video, you know, like, time to move to Russia, you know, cheap energy, traditional values, Christianity, no cancel culture. And, you know, they've been, well, I guess speaking of this, this Russian arms dealer, we'll go ahead and put a little story about him up. He is now, I guess he's joined an ultra nationalist party in Russia, the Liberal Democrat. Excuse me, the Liberal Democratic Party, and he there was some interview with him on Russian state media, and he was talking about the U.S. and how he brought up the trans and LGBTQ stuff, and how it was destroying society, he thought. And I think that Russia missed a absolutely golden opportunity to kind of dunk on us for this the trans stuff. You know, I think they. I mean, this is a gal who she was sentenced to 10 years in a Russian penal colony. So the Gulag, essentially. It might not have been in Siberia, but a Gulag nonetheless. It's probably a nicer Gulag than back in the Soviet days, just since, you know, they have markets there now. So I mean that's a plus. It's not everything is run by the state. I mean, most of it, but there is some private enterprise there, and it's not so private, but it does run off of markets somewhat. So I would think it compared to the Soviet days, it's probably pretty cushy, and so maybe not. I'm not sure. But either way, with all of like the Russian fuckery that goes on, and like all the experiments that they do, not that we don't. I mean, Dr. Fauci still hasn't told us how COVID got out of Wuhan yet. Son of a bitch. It was so windy here the other day, and I'm still like, it was Saturday, I think. Yeah, Saturday. I'm still just blowing shit dust out of my nose from then. So you have a chance. You got this 6'10" black lesbian basketball player. She's an Amazon of a woman. She is feisty. She's lesbian. I mean, she's got a chip on her shoulder. Her extremely tall shoulder. She can dunk, kinda. And she's pretty athletic, pretty damn athletic. Like one of the most athletic women basketball players of all time. Yeah, pretty athletic for a lady. They could have souped her up with so much testosterone, sewed just a monster cock on her, and then I don't know what size of tits she's got, but I mean, like, shoot those babies up too, and make her like the ultimate Russian warrior, and have her like this Amazon goddess leading, you know, with a giant, you know, hammer cock, leading troops onto the battlefield. That Russia could have done that, you know. They have the capability. They could have just let the Marine guy out that's been there for 4 years. I mean, like, are they tired of feeding him yet? They could have just let him out and spent money on Brittany and made her into a super warrior. It was a huge missed opportunity, and I think we should capitalize. Send Brittany Griner to the Navy SEALs right now. Like, I mean, maybe let her get some meat back on her bones. I'm sure the borscht over there was a little subpar for her liking, but you know, let her get some good food in her. Let her manhandle her wife like she's done in the past. You know, I'm sure a lot of pent up sexual rage going on there, and then send her to the Navy SEALs and train her into do what Russia didn't do. Sew a giant dick on her, give her some big fake titties and a bunch of testosterone, caffeine, maybe some horse tranquilizer, and jujitsu lessons. And hell, give her the Neuralink, the one that caused Elon's monkeys to like bite their hand off. Like tweak that chip a little bit, so she's not chewing her own hand off, but somebody else's. And then you can like program it with AI so that even if she chews the wrong person's hand off, it learns from that, and then it only chews off Russian hands or Iranian hands or something of the sort. I don't know. Either way, Putin missed out on that one. Really missed out. But all jokes aside, I'm glad she's back, I guess. I don't know. It's one of those things that I really feel bad for old Brittany Griner. She got caught up in a shitstorm of what I believe is going to be the next World War. I mean, she's going to play ball in Russia because nobody watches women's basketball here in the United States. So she plays in the WNBA, makes, I don't know, $500,000 a year maybe, which is still a lot of money. A lot of money. But compared to what LeBron's making, fuck, dude. Ridiculous. So she goes over to Russia because they pay better over there, and plays in the off season, like a lot of people do. A lot of women play overseas in the off season because it just pays a lot better. Hard to look down on them for that. She gets caught with a vape pen in her bag in the Moscow airport and gets detained right in the middle of this whole Russia-Ukraine nonsense. And now she has just been a political pawn for the last 9-10 months or whatever. Supposedly, it was a vape cartridge full of cannabis oil. Never did specify whether it was CBD or THC or whether it was even actually hers or if it was planted there by Russian state police. Who the fuck knows? This is Russia we're talking about. And also, she's a black lesbian woman basketball player. It's not that far out of the realm of possibility that she smokes a little weed. And she's younger than me, so she's hip to the vapes. So it's not out of the line of possibility that that was hers. But it is Russia. You always got to take that into account. And like, yeah, they've done some shady shit, just like every other government in the world. But Russia's particularly egregious. I mean, you can look into any of the horrific starvations and purges and stuff that went on through Soviet Russia. It was not a great place to live if you weren't in the highest spheres of power in the Soviets. But even then, sometimes communism just got you. It just tends to get you, that old communism. So anyway, I know a lot of people are pissed off at her because she disrespected the flag or whatever. No, what I think she had requested the national anthem not to be played because she was offended or something, which is dumb, really dumb, fucking stupid. But I don't know. I don't find anything particularly egregious about it, and particularly the backlash of people like just let her rot over there. I don't know. She's still American, right? I mean, we're kind of halfway supposed to be on the same team, and I I mean, I honestly, I'd be kind of pissed if they, even if they arrested Hillary Clinton in Russia. I mean, I don't like the bitch, but you can't, you can't do that, Russia. Like, fuck off. Don't be pulling these. I mean, Hillary would be a little more understandable, a lot more understandable than Brittany Griner, but like to pull a civilian in that was a pretty low blow on the on Russia's part. And so yeah, I'm glad they got her back. It was a terrible trade, but I mean, I don't know. I guess at least she's back. I mean, that I don't care how bad somebody's speech and opinion hurts your feelings. Like to wish a Russian penal colony on them is seems a bit harsh. I don't know if I've ever been that pissed off at somebody to wish that upon them. Not somebody that I knew, anyways, and particularly not somebody that I just saw on the TV that made me mad. So, yeah, I don't understand quite so much that the backlash against her, especially when the grand scheme of things, she plays in the fucking WNBA. Nobody watches it anyways, so I don't know what to be all that upset about. So, good thing she's back, and on I guess on a more important point that is to get that done. The Secretary of State and the Russian Foreign Minister had to at least speak to each other, which that's a good thing. It's a very basic first step of diplomacy is to sit down and talk. Whether they sat down and talked to each other or not, I don't know, but they did have some sort of communication and to get this thing through. And so, yeah, them two talking to each other is better than them not. I would assume so. There's a silver lining and all that, and also she's home, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see this Russian arms dealer selling a bunch of weapons back into Ukraine to be used against Russia, because the dude is a moneymaker. He's a capitalist. He's a fucking arms dealer. I don't think he's hardcore. Well, they said he joined the the ultra nationalist party, but I think that guy's just out for the money. We'll see. Who knows? But to explain even further why I believe that we're going to war, we started off talking about Russia, Ukraine, because that's the most that'd be your odds-on favorite, I suppose, as to where this is all gonna pop off. So you've got Western Europe over here, UK, Germany, Sweden. I'm not good at running the Google Earth, but you got Ukraine down here, and in particular, let's go down to the Black Sea. There we go. So you got the Crimean Peninsula here, and then you've got fighting over in this part of Ukraine. So you got there we go. Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and then where is Kherson? I believe it's over here, maybe. Yeah, Kherson over here. So essentially, since the start of this war, Russia has annexed here, here, and here. So there's still kind of a region. Yeah. So they got essentially they got a land bridge going from mainland Russia over to Crimea. They were all the way up in where was Kherson, the city, but it was over this river. So Kherson, the city over here, but now they are back on this side. After they kind of annexed this, it's kind of ground to a stalemate. One of the big escalations was over this little bridge right here, which connects Crimea to the Russian mainland. Ukrainian special forces blew that up with a truck. It didn't completely destroy the bridge, but it did a lot of damage, and that was the main thoroughfare for them to move equipment across into Crimea and then supply these southern regions, as well as going. They've got stuff over in here going through Luhansk and Donetsk. I hate trying to pronounce all these Russian names and Ukrainian names, but anyways, it's kind of a stalemate. And then shit really kind of kicked up once Ukraine started firing into Russia proper. So all this shit over here, and then this bridge. Russia annexed Crimea back in 2014, 2018. It was 2014, I believe. And the world hasn't really recognized it, but they kind of just allowed it to be. They still consider it part of Ukraine, but they're not real, I guess, married to the idea. Yeah. Sorry about that. I recorded a whole episode and my microphone was on mute, so that was neat. But anyway, this bridge is definitely Russian territory. Russia built it. Whatever, is one of like Vladimir Putin's shining achievements or whatever. In response, Russia pounded Ukraine with missile strikes that took out a lot of their energy infrastructure, their power plants, the electrical grid, things of that nature. Total war type shit, which the U.S. has not really waged since World War II. And something I don't know that the American public really has the stomach for. But if they do, or if they don't, they're going to have to find the stomach for it if this shit pops off. Because if we get into a conflict with Russia, it's not going to be pretty. You can ask the Germans and the Poles and any number of countries that got conquered by Germany for a short time there in World War II. The Third Reich didn't last long, but boy, they caused a lot of damage. So if you look at Ukraine and so Russia's over here. You got Belarus, which is a big ally of Russia, kind of a puppet government of the Kremlin. You got Poland over here. Moldova is not too far from Crimea over here, and there's an area in Moldova that is heavily Russian speaking or ethnic Russian, and Putin's got his sights set on Moldova as well. And then you've got Romania over here. So Poland and Romania both have, I don't know how many troops, I don't know how many units, whether it's divisions or what, or regiments or whatever. The 101st Airborne is a division. So you got elements of the 101st in Poland and Romania both. We're sending a lot more troops up into, I think, Estonia and Lithuania. We're really ramping up our troop presence in Europe. Yeah, now you had the little deal the other day when a Ukrainian missile landed in Polish territory, killed a couple Polish citizens. Um, the Ukrainians blamed it on Russia initially, and then had to walk that back when it was found out it was one of their own, uh, you know, like what would anti-aircraft or missiles. It was something that they fired to try to slow down the missile onslaught from Russia. Landed in Poland, and then you had the Ukrainian president and their foreign minister shrieking to NATO to try to step in and escalate this thing, which is not a good idea for anyone, particularly Ukraine. Like, Ukraine's gonna get hit the hardest in any of this nonsense. So it's you've got Finland and Sweden getting set to join NATO. Finland shares a border with Russia. Sweden's not that far over. You got the Black Sea, which is where the Nord Stream pipeline goes through over here into Germany. Germany the other day had a coup attempt, try to overthrow the government. Apparently, 25 people were arrested in conjunction with this plot, and the goal was to storm it's not the Reichstag anymore, but it's the Bundestag, and then they were gonna install Kaiser Heinrich the Eighth or something like that. Was it some member who I would say he was a member of the German royalty, like the old Prussian royalty. But he wasn't really. He was like the German royalty hadn't any powers for over 100 years. But it was called it was all right. We're back. I don't know what happened on that one, but I think my audio is still good here. I think so. Yeah, we're good. All right. Well, anyway, this Reichsbürger movement did not get very far. They got arrested, and but even though this seemed like it was a big old nothing Reichsburger, so slow. There we are. So even though these the beer hall putsch, which is a failed coup attempt, and well, they tried again and they succeeded for a while, anyways. So the more you see these high energy prices in Germany, and the more this war in Ukraine slogs on, according to both sources within the Department of Defense, and then there was a video from the EU president the other day. Maybe I can pull that up. That according to the DoD, Russia has lost about 100,000 troops killed and wounded, which is that's a lot. It's a lot. But so have the Ukrainians. Um, you know, I think Russia is somewhere in the ballpark of like 3 to 4 times um, bigger than Ukraine. And yeah, here we go. I got this video. Make sure my audio is good, and we'll pop this on the screen. Yeah.
Have been more than 100,000 Ukrainian military officers have been killed so far. More than 100,000 Ukrainian military officers.
100,000. And then about that same amount on the Russian side. So big time numbers, meat grinder over there. And the more and more this goes on, the more and more it escalates. So now we have, in response to Russia bombarding all the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, Ukraine has started launching drones over into Russian territory, and not just like the new regions that Putin, annexed. So if we go, all right, so we got the Kherson region, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk. That's where the main fighting is. Those are the 4 regions that Russia formally annexed earlier this year, due to a big Ukrainian counteroffensive. They've pushed the Russians out of this area over here and back across I think that's the Dnieper River, something like that. And so, in response to the missile attacks, these drone attacks have been launched into Russia proper, like not even these regions here. And according to, let me find that article, but where was that? Here we go. I sent this to Aaron the other day, and this is why the main reason why I think we're going to war, and this is the reason why I think it's probably going to be in Europe. Just if you look at the troop buildup, all the shit that's gone down, but now the Pentagon. This is from the Times of London. Pentagon gives Ukraine green light for drone strikes inside Russia. Pentagon has given a tacit endorsement of Ukraine's long-range attacks on targets inside Russia after Putin's multiple missile strikes against Kiev's critical infrastructure. Since the daily assaults on civilians began in October, the Pentagon has revised its threat assessment of the war in Ukraine. Crucially, this includes new judgments about whether arms shipments to Kiev might lead to a military confrontation between Russia and NATO. This represents a significant development in the 9-month war between Ukraine and Russia, with Washington now likelier to supply Kiev with longer-range weapons. We're still using the same escalatory calculations, but the fear of it. Source told the Times. It's different now. This is because the calculus of the war has changed as a result of the suffering and the brutality the Ukrainians are being subjected to by the Russians. Washington is now less concerned that the new long-range strikes inside Russia could lead to dramatic escalation. Moscow's revenge attacks have to date all involved conventional missile strikes against civilian targets. Previously, the Pentagon was warier of Ukraine attacking Russia because it feared the Kremlin would retaliate with tactical nuclear weapons or by targeting neighboring NATO nations. So now they think because, they haven't hit Poland yet, and they haven't hit Ukraine with a nuke yet, they're probably not going to do it. So we're just going to, all right, go ahead, Ukraine, forge ahead and start shooting into Russia, which is what they've been doing. So within the last week or so, they've launched airstrikes or drone strikes on air bases. One of the bases was like 300 to 400 miles inside of Russia, like long way in there. And a couple others with like about 100 miles inside Russia. But this is like not in the disputed territories at all. This is Russia proper. And luckily, those were not American-made drones. They were like old Soviet-era drones that are kind of like the Iranian kamikaze drones. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about them, but essentially, I think when they go to deliver their payload, like that's it. Like if they're delivering a bomb, that thing's not coming back. And not like our drones, which Ukraine wants, by the way. I think it's like the Gray Eagles. Here we're pull up that article that Vladimir Zelensky, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, on Monday addressed a group of 7 and asked for natural gas and more advanced weaponry, including fighter jets, tanks, and long-range missiles. After the meeting, G7 leaders released a joint statement reaffirming they will support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And yeah, they were can't find that article, but they were wanting one of our drones systems in particular that can stay in the air for like over a day. I think like 25 hours or something like that, and has a range of like 250 miles, which is like that's enough to damn near strike Moscow from certain parts of Ukraine, I think. Either way, 250 miles, that's quite a ways. And the drones that they want of ours, you can put Hellfire and I forget what the other missile that you can mount on there and fire from there. That's not a great thing. when we're staring down the barrel of nuclear war. So now we're considering giving them these longer range weapons because we just assume that Putin will not respond with a nuke or on NATO countries. I mean, maybe. I don't know how much I would count on it, but maybe. Also, along those same lines, the United States and NATO countries have essentially drained their ammunition stockpiles, particularly of artillery shells. The way this war is going in Ukraine, I can't remember exactly how many artillery shells they were using, but I know it was something along the lines of either they would use in one day or maybe 1 week the same number of artillery shells that they would use in Afghanistan in a whole month. So it's a lot more artillery shelling, a lot more expensive in that aspect. And now the more and more you send this more advanced weaponry over there, not only does it get more expensive and it escalates the conflict, but also it gives Russia a chance to capture some of those weapons and reverse engineer it and fortify their own military. That's what we would do. It's what we both sides of this whole conflict. The two big ones anyway, Russia and U.S. We've been stealing shit from each other for years and reverse engineering it. I mean, we got a freaking I can't remember what country he was from in the Middle East. Might have been Libyan, maybe. We got him to defect and steal a fucking MiG and fly it over to one of our bases, and then we were able to reverse engineer that and make our fighter jets better and whatnot. But son of a bitch, it's just kind of the name of the game, I guess. You steal shit back and forth from each other, and the best way for them not to steal it from us over there is to not send it over there. But that's too little too late on that end. So anyhow, we've depleted not all of our, but I think we're running pretty seriously low on our ammunition depot, and NATO countries have essentially drained theirs as well, sending it to Ukraine. We've actually spent more money. Maybe I said this earlier. Maybe it was on the episode I recorded that didn't record. I don't know. I can't remember. But so I'll say it again. We've spent more money than Russia has on this war. And Russia is the invader. We have spent so much money. And it's not slowing down at all. And then not to even just focus on Russia completely. If we go over to the east a little ways, we've got a situation over here in Asia, and it's not real handy either. So you've got Japan over here, you got North Korea over here, not too far away from each other. North Korea, Pyongyang. And then Tokyo is, where is it? It's over here somewhere. Tokyo, right there. There you go. Pyongyang to Tokyo. Mind you, North Korea has weapons that are capable of hitting like Guam and Hawaii, and maybe so you got Hawaii over here, and I think maybe they can hit California with their ICBMs. And they've been just firing missiles left and right over the past couple of months, just stirring up some shit. So you got that. And then you got this cool little situation over here, Taiwan. If you remember back in history, post World War II, after the Japanese got nuclear bombed and gave up like a bunch of pussies, we were left dealing with the shit show aftermath of China, which part of it used to be a British colony, Hong Kong over here. And I don't know, there's a whole sordid history with China and Korea and all these Asian countries and colonialism. But essentially after World War II, even though India and a lot of Asia was colonized by Britain and France, they were too fucked up after the war to be able to do much about it. The only countries that really had any sort of might left was us and the Soviet Union. But in particular us, because we didn't get invaded. We didn't have to fight off the Nazi army on our own soil. And we didn't have to dump 12 million troops into that conflict. We sacrificed a lot, but nowhere near as much as Russia did. So therefore, we came out way on the better end of the deal. And so here we are in China after we drove out the Japanese, bombed the absolute bejesus out of them, and then went ahead and nuked them twice. We got China just simmering over here, and this big civil war breaks out between Mao Zedong and the communists, and Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalist Chinese army. Well, the communists, being the great promisers of everything that they are, they promised all the things, and they ended up winning that civil war. And Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists, they tuck their tails and run, and they head over here to the island of Taiwan, where they've essentially been their own country, just not recognized by the rest of the world, I guess. And so it's always been kind of like, yeah, sure, Taiwan, you're your own thing, but we have a one China policy, meaning that there's only one China. There's not Chinese Taipei. There is China, and that's it. And the key thing about China in this day and age is they manufacture like 85% of the world's semiconductors and microchips that we use in all of these electronic devices that we have, whether it's your phone, your earbuds, your pickup, your laptop, your fucking Instapot, all this shit that it uses microchips, and almost all of them are made in Taiwan. So it's not a huge stretch to see why China might want to go ahead and take Taiwan back. And there has been a lot of talks between the U.S. and China, so that's a good thing. Regardless of what we don't negotiate with terrorist type people tell you, like, dialogue is good. Sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. Sometimes it does. But to de-escalate something of this level, like, man, you've got to be able to talk to people and figure that shit out. So now we'll go back to the West a little bit. Not full on in the West, but meanwhile, you still got China here. You got India here, and there's this big border between India and China, and there's always skirmishes about going on around there. Myanmar, which used to be Burma, right over here, they have got a lot of political strife going on in their country. Pakistan and India hate each other real bad. They don't like each other at all. And they both got nukes, so that's neat. Yeah, so they're always fighting with each other. Iran, U.S. hates Iran. Well, the U.S. government hates Iran for not giving up their oil to the British in the 1950s. So they overthrew. I believe it was the first in the Arab world, the first democratically elected president. But the first one in Iran for sure. It might have been the first in the Muslim world. I can't remember. But anyway, we've always had a beef with them ever since that. They're in the news a lot. Israel hates them. Israel's over here, in this little area here. They share a border with Syria. They're launching airstrikes in Syria on an increasing basis. They've been bombing Syria for quite some time. Syria and Israel lob bombs back and forth at each other all the time. You got Turkey, who just suffered a terrorist bombing in Istanbul here a couple weeks ago. They're blaming the Kurdistan region of Syria and this group called the PKK. I think, I don't know what that stands for, but essentially they're Sunni Muslims and they control this. Let's see, Kurdistan. There we go. So this. Kurdistan, Syria. All right. All right, so you have this region up in here in northern Syria that the borders up against Turkey. That's essentially an autonomous region within Syria, run by the Kurds. Turkey's blaming them for bombing Istanbul. You got this little peninsula that connects essentially the Middle East to Europe, going from Turkey into Bulgaria and what is that, Greece, I guess. Yeah, something like that. So this whole area is a hot spot. Syria is a shit show. We caused that for the most part. Not all of it, but played a pretty big hand. Of course, you've always got Israel fighting with Syria. They're not so much fighting with Egypt anymore, which is good, but they still got some beef with Jordan, maybe. I think, I don't know. Iraq's a shit show. Who knows what the fuck's going on over there? And then let's go back to where World War II started. Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As far as I know, Bosnia and Herzegovina are not. There's nothing popping off there just yet. But Serbia and Kosovo, different story. This is all of the Balkans. But if you remember back to World War I, it was all kicked off in Sarajevo by a fella named Gavrilo Princip. Assassinated the Archduke of Austria, Franz Ferdinand. Set off a chain of events that launched Europe into war and then eventually the entire world. Only to happen again about 30 years later after it ended. And in the meanwhile, like we never and by we I mean the Western region never figured out a good way to break up this or allow this area to do its thing. So Yugoslavia was this huge country in here, and there was a ton of different ethnic issues throughout that whole area because it was a huge country, and there was a lot of like really old tribal disagreements within there, and it led to war. There's shit always cooking in the Balkans there, and right now you have Serbian troops threatening to march into Kosovo to protect the ethnic Serbians over there, and there's been protests, and they've like locked down a highway, and there's been some, both sides kind of exchanging fire, and it's a real tense situation. And the EU, I think, is EU is prepared to send in peacekeepers. Let me pull up that article. And here we go. So, U.S. and EU envoys urge Kosovo and Serbia not to fuel violence. Envoys from the European Union and the United States have called on Kosovo and Serbia to remain calm and not fuel an ongoing ethnic crisis in Kosovo's north, where local Serbs have erected barricades to prevent police movement. Serb protesters in northern Kosovo have blocked main roads and exchanged fire with police after the arrest of a former Serb policeman for allegedly attacking Kosovo institutions and officials during rising tensions between authorities and Kosovo's Serb minorities. This was another article. EU prepared to send reinforcements to mission in Kosovo. Didn't say how many they were willing to send. But either way, like, shit seems like it could pop off over there. And then when you look about, all right, so we were in Kosovo, or was it Serbia, or was it Bosnia? Where does Herzegovina play in? I don't know. And why is it our business? And we have that. And then you're like, all right, well, they're not that far from Italy. And Italy just elected what the media is calling a far right-wing prime minister, and their party is taking power. You had this coup attempt in Germany, and also happened to be on the day of the Nord Stream pipeline bombing. There were huge protests in Germany against the government to turn the Nord Stream back on because fuel prices and energy prices had gotten so fucking expensive in Germany. One of the things that allowed the Nazis and fascists in general to rise to power in Europe was the shitty economy. And when when you got a whole generation of your countrymen coming back from a war where they fought their ass off and they got thrown into one of the biggest meat grinders that's ever happened in world history, fought over the same couple 100 yards of turf for 4 years, only to have your government surrender on your behalf, and then accept the terms of this peace deal, which just impoverished the German people for all of the 20s and the 30s. And when you have that type of poverty, it is a good time for old Marxism to swoop in and talk about the evil capitalists and the workers of the world uniting and all that. And we'll come back to the whole workers of the world thing later on when I give you my advice or my thoughts on how to survive this upcoming conflict. But hopefully it just stays as just a conflict and not a full-blown war. But when you put all of this shit into, look at it from a 30,000 foot view, like, I don't know what, so you go over to China and Taiwan. Well, Taiwan is not really part of China anymore, but China still claims it, and the rest of the world, like, talks about something else when China brings up, Taiwan, and, that we got the one China policy, which means Taiwan's still kind of part of China, I guess. But now we've said, like, we'll support them militarily if China invades. So that's alarming. North Korea, I don't know. I think they just want people to know they got nukes, and they're just trying to get some sort of concession somewhere because, their people are starving by design, and they don't have a whole lot of industry. But they do have a lot of weaponry, so they've been selling artillery shells to Europe. Not to Europe, to Russia, because Russia's in the same boat as everyone else in Europe and NATO of depleting their stockpiles, because they didn't think this thing was going to be that hard. It's amazing the hubris every time one of these fuckers starts a war. They're like, we're going to be welcomed with open arms. Never happens. Doesn't happen. At least I haven't seen it yet. And maybe they initially welcome you with open arms, and then they start car bombing you and shit like that. Anyway, then so I don't know what North Korea's got going on, where they're headed. But I do know that Japan just ordered a bunch of Tomahawk missiles, which have a pretty long range, long enough range for them to strike North Korea and probably China and Russia as well. And yeah, that's a big deal because it's kind of an about face on Japan's military philosophy, which before this they called it pacifist, but essentially it was just all self-defense weapons. If it had offensive strike capabilities, they just said, nope, we're not going to do that. We learned our lesson from our brief stint in Japanese imperialism. But now they got some Patriot missiles or Tomahawk missiles. Patriot missile system's the one going in Poland, which is it's a missile defense system, I guess. It's mostly used to shoot down ICBMs and whatnot. But the Tomahawks are definitely an offensive weapon, and they've got the range to strike some really bad guys that could start some really worse shit for the rest of the world. So keep an eye on that. There's just a lot of this shit going down, and then it's all for me. It's just like I don't know where it's gonna pop off. I would my bet would be Germany has something to do with it, and I got to go with the odds on money that it's probably going to start in Europe. And that's going to mean a bunch of things, but the main thing that's going to mean is it's going to take a lot of money, and we're going to have to mobilize like we haven't mobilized since World War II. Number two, that means the draft's probably coming back too. You're not going to be able to take on Russia and or China and or North Korea and or do something in the Balkans and or still continue to try to police the Middle East and North Africa and or maintain security here at home and or try to make sure that the Mexican cartels don't get too powerful. I'm gonna take a lot more than an all volunteer fighting force to do all of that. And so this shit pops off. You can count on the draft coming back. I think like I said, I've been wrong before. Been wrong on a lot of these predictions, but I think that one you could probably take to the bank. If shit pops off in Europe and then that leads to shit popping off elsewhere, we're going to need a lot more troops than we got now. A lot more, which brings me to, I guess, my final point. Now where are we at? We're at hour 7. So where do we go from here? How do we manage through all this? And I think there's a few things you can take advantage of if we learned anything through history. So my dad, Wes McKinley, he's not my biological dad, but he's the guy I call my dad. And then his younger brothers. My dad's the oldest of 6 boys. Uncle Dave was the one right below him. They both received draft notices to go fight in Vietnam. My dad was working for a farm, or working with my grandpa on a farm ranch operation. Uncle Dave was in school, didn't have a full-time job. My dad got a deferment. Uncle Dave was drafted, went to Vietnam. Donald J. Trump claimed he had bone spurs. He was also going to college. Did not go to Vietnam. While a bunch of other regular working class folks, black, brown, white, yellow, all got drafted, sent over to Vietnam to fight. Get yourself a deferment, because this one over in Europe's going to be pretty ugly. And I don't know if the U.S. military has ever been in a war where the enemy is using drones to shoot back against them. I know we've got a lot of experience in picking apart terrorist cell groups in Middle Eastern countries, but the last time we fought a major power was the guy that we're fixing to go fight was on our side back then, and I liked that scenario better because Germany doesn't have very many natural resources. So I'd be fine reversing this scenario and having Putin on our side and we're fighting Germany. But that's not how it is. It's not how the world works. And yet, I don't know. Germany is interesting. If you take this coup plot, I don't know how big of a deal it actually was. It made a lot of media stink, but I don't know. Obviously, there was no actual threat to the state power there, but you take that, and then you also look at Poland, who possibly is responsible for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline because, that would mean that more gas got pumped through their pipelines in Poland into Germany, and that makes them money. So that's a good thing in their books. And then they also requested something like $4 trillion in reparations from World War II from Germany, and Germany is not real happy about it. So a little trouble in paradise, maybe. I don't know. And it's just a perfect example of how insightful all these founding fathers of ours, when Washington talked about not getting into entangling alliances in Europe, and John Quincy Adams talked about refraining from gallivanting around the world looking for dragons to slay. Like, I don't know what our relationship with Serbia is. I think they're more friendly with Russia. I don't know. I believe Kosovo is a NATO member, maybe. I don't know. And for you folks out there that don't pay attention to this at all, and you're just hearing it from me, like, yeah, if I don't know, how's somebody that doesn't pay attention at all know? And how are the people in power? How are they gonna try to expect us to know what the hell's going on over in Kosovo and Serbia? Let alone, I don't know what Italy's ties are with Russia, if they got some treaty. I don't know what Germany's what their situation is, and it's just, he seems like a lot of something that we should stay the fuck out. Even though we've caused a lot of this, or at least had a pretty big hand in a lot of this shit happening over the past 100 years, but I don't know if it's ever too late to just stop doing that. And yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. So, one of the things that has become very apparent is with this ammunition shortage, with Zelensky demanding more and more weapons, and the military industrial complex being what it is, those companies that make these weapons are going to make a shitload of money. Especially since in part of the new National Defense Authorization Act, it's like open bid contracts or something where essentially, like, I mean, it's technically an open bid, but like everybody knows who's getting the bid, and it's the guys that make javelins and shit. So that being said, like, when all these contracts start kicking in, and we're trying to replenish our own stockpile as well as keep Ukraine in business. Yeah, I would say, like, if you're kind of thinking this cowboy shit's not paying so well, I would go get a factory job at Lockheed or Raytheon or Boeing or General Dynamics or any of these major, like, go take a look at what our military is using right now. Find who makes those products. And this is not financial advice, but it seems to me, like a dumbass podcaster, those would be solid investments. But I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor. I do know that a lot of companies that make those munitions and whatnot are union labor. They're union job. That's another thing I would recommend if you don't have a good situation where you're at cowboying. There's no shame in go working in a factory for a little bit to get you some money. Those union jobs in the factory, the work might suck. Probably not as bad as a cold day of horseback, you know, when it's just windy and miserable and you got a lot of shit to do. I bet the factory ain't that bad compared to this past Saturday, you know. So yeah, I think a union job at one of these companies right now might be a good ticket. Might be a good way to get a deferment out of that old draft deal. But I mean, if you're dead set on, like, being the American badass and joining up, more power to you. I respect the hell out of it. I would not recommend any of my kids, you know, for the foreseeable future, unless shit kind of comes around back to normal. I would not recommend my kids join the military. I would not recommend any of the younger folks that listen to the show that still are, kind of in that age range for military service. I wouldn't recommend any of you guys, signing up right now. Like, I'd say buy a gun and be ready to fight here, because and that's one thing for sure is, short of full on, thermonuclear war, we're probably okay over here. We got the Pacific Ocean between us and Russia and China. We got the Atlantic Ocean between us and Europe and Africa. And we've got a government to our north that is run by the biggest pussy I've ever seen in my life. And then we got very fertile territory for the taking. I would advise. And I'm not a hawk. I'm very, for the most part, I would say very non-interventionalist, but Mexico's broke. Like that whole country is just fucking broken. Not broke wasn't a good word. Broken. I don't know how you fix that shit. We had a big hand in that with the drug war, and I don't know. I don't know how you fix that. But it seems like maybe this might be one little case where imperialism ain't that bad. It could backfire horribly, but what are you gonna do? But I would highly recommend getting involved in your local politics, and particularly with people who are of the mindset to tell the federal government to pound sand and let us live our lives. Like, those are the type of people that you need to get at the local and state level. Personally, I would spend some money in stocks. I would look at all of these defense contractors and see what their bottom line is, see what the records say, and maybe it's ends up being a clean puff piece, and maybe you break something huge. Who knows? But I think independent journalism is going to be huge going forward. Know how to use the internet. That's always a good thing. Not everything on the internet is good, but knowing how to navigate it is essential. And so be internet savvy to a certain extent, just at least enough to know how to get some shit, whatever that shit might be. And if you do end up in Ukraine, Godspeed, man. It's gonna be a long fucking winter. It is cold up there, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know where all this is headed. I really don't. But just looking at history, it just seems more and more like this shit's headed to conflict, and like a major conflict. And this is kind of our generation's, Cuban Missile Crisis, except this is Russian Missile Crisis. And we had a big play in getting to that point, just like we did with Cuba and all that. And it seems to me that, well, you don't have to be overly apologetic to these world leaders. You can stand your ground and show that you're, the working man without all the show. Like it's funny watching that guy work. Man, I don't know where I'm headed with any of this, but these defense industry stocks, not a financial advisor, but I'm gonna buy some of that. I'm 37 years old. I think I'm probably too old for the draft, but when you look at Ukraine and they've lost 100,000 soldiers, now they're drafting people that are just under the age of 40. So you got some 40-year-olds getting ready to go hit the front lines, and man, it's one thing to have a guerrilla force against a Middle Eastern dictator, but to try and stare down the fucking Russians, man, like how many people have they made die, or have they disappeared? Yeah, it's one thing. I think you ought to be. You don't have to be scared of them, but you ought to be somewhat careful when you're talking shit to Russia, you know? One of the reasons I'm pushing for this union job deal is, for whatever reason, on the conservative and libertarian side of the political spectrum, there has been almost no effort whatsoever to get in the good graces with the labor unions. I'm not a big labor union fan myself because I don't like socialism. I hate communism. I hate them both. But I also understand the power of, or I can see the power of collective bargaining. And in today's day and age, I think it's going to take a lot of worker strikes to claw back any semblance of normalcy. You know, the crazy part about this COVID stuff is not only did it locked people down and screwed up the supply chain and all of that, but it just riled up tensions domestically and and foreign tensions as well. I mean, just like people were so on edge, and I don't know. Like, if you're a young guy, I don't know exactly how you go about getting a deferment outside of working in agriculture. But if we're headed the way of Netherlands, where that's not going to matter much anyway. Netherlands is just trying to get rid of their agriculture sector altogether. It was a one-time buyback offer that was was above market price or whatever, that the Dutch government's offering these farmers and ranchers to just stop doing agriculture. And if they take it, great. If not, you're going to have it taken anyways. And we're fairly decent friends with the Netherlands. And so if you don't think they could try that here, well, they definitely could. And anymore, I wouldn't put it past them if they did. I mean, it just seems like something maybe they would try. But man, if you're gonna send 1 million troops overseas, you got to figure out how to feed them. And that means if you're in the business of growing some sort of food, or a product that ends up as food, I'd say you got a pretty steady job. I don't know if we're going to go back to like the Rosie the Riveter days or whatnot, but I would also, like I said, I would avoid that. I would avoid that army military like the plague if I could, because I have no faith in the leadership whatsoever. And it just pains me to think of the number of lives that will be wasted on this fucking border squabble between a couple of old dudes. And just, it's crazy. And then like that's kind of the feeling that a lot of the union guys have. It's like, well, fuck this company, but if we stick together, we can make things a little bit better. And I'm all about that a little bit. Like I'm pro business as just about anybody on earth, but sometimes business needs to be put in check, because they're fucking up too much. And I don't know. I think the labor unions used to kind of do a pretty good job of it. Anymore, I'm not sure what the labor unions do besides just give money to Democrats. But I don't know. Maybe you get a couple conservative type guys working in the same factory, and they, one of them or both of them gets on as a union rep and kind of changes the course of how an organization like that goes. Especially if you got a bunch of people jumping on board and another, and some new people doing the same thing. Don't let these people be the only ones that, if they're gonna send us into a stupid war, let's fucking make some money on their backs. Just follow where their money's going and put your own money down. They seem to be pretty good at playing that stock market. And if you do get drafted, man, it shouldn't be too hard for you to move up the ranks given today's nonsense, who they've been like recruiting to the military, just more and more just 50,000 shades of gay that we're being bombarded with nowadays. I don't think it'd be hard to skip over somebody for a promotion that requests for certain pronouns to be used. I mean, as you're getting ready to go fight in the most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. You're worried about fucking pronouns. Now get the fuck out, or give me 50 push-ups and then get the fuck out. Is be like what a drill sergeant would say to that horse shit. So, like, if you do get drafted and you're reasonably competent and have some survival skills, yeah, you'll probably make a pretty good officer. That other guy wouldn't. So, try to be a good leader. Be a leader in your community. Pay attention to who's getting elected locally, which is something I need to do a better job of. And if push comes to shove, like, run for office so you can speak out against this nonsense. Like, it's just insane how much money we've spent on on all of it. So, yeah, that money's got to go somewhere, and get your little piece of the pie while you can. Find where these fuckers are investing, and yeah, I bet you could bet on that. I bet you could bet. I think you'd be in the right spot where the money starts to flow a little bit. So anyhow, I don't think we're completely screwed, but get ready for some rationing. Get ready for all of these climate change people when push comes to shove. I think they're going to be like, hey, we fucking need some oil. Go drill some oil, please. Please, drill some oil. I think that's where we're going to be. So, I don't know, man. You look at all these, like NATO's the big treaty in Europe, but there's so many other little agreements, and not necessarily treaties, but mutual. I don't know if we got any mutual defense pacts, but we've got those things just by a different name all throughout the system, and it looks pretty daunting if you're not already tied in. But like, put good people in so maybe we don't have this fucking fiasco down the road. And I don't know. Keep listening to me. I'll try to make you laugh. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. When you do, it's been a pretty good ride for old 2022, ups and downs, but overall pretty good ride. I'm gonna try to do a Festivus episode here. I think it's on the 23rd. Gotta see what I got going on, but I will be doing a Festivus episode. Possibly I'll get Aaron to chip in on that, and other than that, it's going to be kind of busy from here to the end of the year, so I will try to get some episodes out when I can, but I'm not going to guarantee the 3 times a week that I normally do, but I will guarantee if you sign up at patreon.com/burningdaylight, you will be the first ones to be allowed to listen to it or watch it. Either way, first ones get to see it on Patreon. Yeah, if you would go check out my I'm a brand ambassador for Bub's Naturals. They sell collagen peptides and MCT oil and apple cider vinegar gummies. They're gonna have a coffee coming soon, but it's a really good company named after one of the guys that was killed in the Benghazi raid back in when was that, 2012 and 2016, 2012. I can't remember. Either way, Glenn Bub Doherty, he was killed in Benghazi. His best friend started this company and named it after him. It's good stuff. Collagen's supposed to be really good for your hair, your joints, your nails, your skin. It's they call it like the fountain of youth stuff. Is it true? I don't fucking know. Probably not, but it doesn't affect the way my coffee tastes, and it does seem to maybe my joints feel a little bit better. Maybe. We'll see. But if you buy it, use the promo code Burning Daylight. I'll get a little kickback, and you'll be helping the show in that way too. So please go do that. Patreon.com/Burning Daylight and bubsnaturals.com. Find the stuff that works for you. I recommend it all. Apple cider vinegar gummies are fantastic. The MCT oil helps you take vitamins in the morning if you don't eat. Like I typically don't eat before I leave the house. I just I get a cup of coffee. Now I do a scoop of collagen, do a scoop of MCT, blend that bitch up, and then I take my vitamin. And I don't get nauseous from it because I got a good lipid in my stomach for the vitamins to bind to and whatnot. I don't know exactly the science, but either way, I've been rambling on long enough. But please go sign up or go support the show in any way you can. I would appreciate it dearly. I got some big plans coming up for the next year, but it's going to take some money to do so. So tell a friend, share it around. Please help me get these numbers up. Sign up for the Patreon. I promise it's the extra content is pretty golden. We go hard in the paint, and then also the live streams. Like that's where all the live streams are, and I'd like to get a few more of you on comment and blowing up the comments. So let's get back to that, and so go sign up, patreon.com/Burning Daylight. Have a great week, and we'll be back here on Friday or Saturday, depending. And hope you guys have a great holiday season as well. So anyway, I'm going to bed now. Move your ass. We're burning daylight.
You read the sky, what's that about overcrowding? You ever seen a man?
Your eyes up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the south, till the job's done right.